If you're applying for disability benefits or help people that are, the path to success has never been more complicated. Welcome to the Disability Expert Podcast, where we tackle the difficult issues and interview the country's top experts to help you better navigate the disability process. Winning a disability case is hard and keeps getting tougher every day. We can't promise you'll win your case by listening, but we sure think it's going to help.
This really isn't that complicated. I mean, you want to win your case, don't you? Well, then listen to what I say.
Hey, I'm Chad Brown. Welcome to the Disability Expert Podcast, where once again, we're talking to one of the nation's best experts in Social Security disability law. I am so excited today to have Ari Sibrey-Hughes as my guest. Ari, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I am excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Ari is not only a super qualified disability lawyer, she has got to be one of the friendliest, kindest, most excited, not beat down disability lawyer I know. And so she has a big personality and she fights for her clients and she knows a lot. So excited to have her on the show today. Going to talk to her mostly today. We're going to talk about the issue of work and how work impacts all sort of different parts of the Social Security disability process. But let me tell you a little bit about her, why she's here, and why you guys should be listening to her on these issues, because you should. Florida born and raised, FIU undergrad, Campbell Law School, works for the Clausen Law Firm, longtime disability firm here in North Carolina. They have a nationwide disability practice now. Von Clausen, who started and runs their firm, is a disability lawyer I've known a very long time. I guess probably the entire time I've practiced here in North Carolina since started way back in 2004. So she's with a great team of people. She's one of the senior associates there. And with that, Ari, let me get into, tell us a little bit about your background, just a little bit about how you ended up becoming a lawyer.
All right. So as you said, I was born and raised in Gainesville. My dad was an attorney. I knew I wanted to do something to help people. I didn't know how that was going to happen, but let's do it. Let's be a lawyer. Unfortunately, he actually passed away right when I started law school, but he's been with me in spirit this entire time. And so I went to Campbell, having had a break from undergrad to law school, definitely had to adjust to studying again and memorizing and what is the law. So that was fun. I graduated in 2016. Worked my butt off to study for the bar. Unfortunately, in 2016, I did not pass it the first time. The second time, I was like, I'm only doing this one more time. I kind of skated by on studying because I was so confident I was not confident that first time, but I put the work in. And fortunately, I passed on the second go round. I was way more confident. It was such an amazing thing. I literally tell mentees, just go in there, the information, be confident. That's the key. And so after I passed, I did a little bit of document review, and then I landed a job with the Fry Law offices doing family law. Unfortunately, I did get fired about 8 months in. It came as quite a surprise. It was very unexpected. And so I just kind of went back and I was pregnant, so I had my son, did document review. When he was about 6 months old, I was just job searching and stumbled upon Craigslist, and there was a ad for being a lawyer. It said, do you like to help people and do you like to travel? And I was like, yes and yes. And so I applied and talked to Ben, which is Von's son, who manages us. And that was it. And that was July 2019. And I have been doing this for, 6 years this year. And I positively cannot imagine doing anything else. This was made for me. I love what I do. I love my clients. I love seeing them. I love talking with them. I probably was hit a little hard with COVID because I was no longer able to be in person with them. So, but it's really good. I'm glad we got back to in person a little bit there. But yeah, I love what I do. I often quip, if I won the lottery, I would still do this job because that's how fulfilling it is for me.
Yeah. So, it's one of these things where there's a lot to unpack there. And we got a bunch of really important issues for people who are trying to navigate disability process and work through work through work issues. But, I think it's important to step back and talk about that a minute, because The reality is I think sometimes people, when they hire a lawyer, they're like, oh, these, they seem to have it all figured out. I mean, you come into our offices and we got the wall of fame behind us with all of our diplomas and all of our Fed Circuit admissions and our cool things that we've done. And you sort of like, oh, they're almost intimidated by us. In fact, in my office, we went to like almost a casual dress years ago, just because we felt like we could relate better to our clients. Because the last thing the disability client needs is to come into the attorney's office and work with them and then just sort of feel intimidated or feel like they can't talk to them, like they're not real people. And personally, I did family law many years ago, back like 02, I think, 03. I mean, that's the best thing that ever happened to you, getting fired from a family law job. I can't imagine like having to navigate that. But what a testament to you that you stepped back and said, hey, there's a bigger plan for me. I'm gonna figure out what that is. And lo and behold, you ended up with a great lawyer and a great firm. And now you're really making an impact on people's lives, and your enthusiasm, which I know, because I know you, is just so strong. And like, our clients need that because they find us in their lowest points a lot of times, and to be able to bring that energy of like, hey, I'm here for you. I care about you. Look, everything hasn't been perfect in my life either, but like, we're going to work through this because in the end, we're going to find a way to make you whole. And that's just such a testament to you. So tell us about working at Clausen Law. I know now you're like a senior manager, but just sort of give us an introduction to like, what were your first few years there like, and what's your day-to-day life like working there like now?
So when I first got in, I was obviously, very new. What is Social Security disability? What is that? And just kind of learning the ropes. I remember one of my first cases, I was in there and I didn't realize what the SGA was, and this woman was working and she was so it was a step one denial, and I was questioning the client, and I felt so bad for her afterwards. I've since learned what SGA is and all the ramifications there. But it was good, just kind of shadowing, following, learning, constantly learning, especially with Vaughn. Like you said, Vaughn, he's been doing this for years. And so before then, I was mostly a hearing attorney. So I was present with the clients via in person. That went COVID, then we did to the phone and then the video. And then I went to client services. So I had a little bit more interaction with all our clients, because at our firm, we do from initial all the way, we'll appeal to federal district court if applicable. And so I got to learn the ins and outs of the processes, particularly with initial and recon, as well as here. So that's been such a learning opportunity. And now I am a senior attorney here at the firm. So I not only manage my own cases with my hearings, I also manage the lower associates, making sure if they have any questions, they can come to me for advice. We as a team collaborate on everything. So if anyone ever has a question, there's no, as small as I said, no dumb questions. Just let us know, ask us, because we're all here. Because like I said, your success is our success. So we are here for the clients. And I did want to circle back on something you were talking about being empathetic and sympathetic with our clients. I think that's something that I do bring to the table, especially with our clients. Oftentimes clients are in the lowest, darkest points of their life. They don't have any money. They're sick. They may not have support. They're struggling with physical, mental impairments. I'm very passionate about mental health. So when clients are really struggling, I can tell that. I just say, hey, listen, it's okay to go and talk to someone. It's okay to take a step. Take care of yourself. That is number one. We want to make sure we'll be over here. We'll worry about the day-to-day and Social Security and all the gymnastics they put you through and all the complications. But at the end of the day, I want you to make sure that you are okay and that you are taking care of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that too, we have to really not forget as lawyers is you used to see this. It used to be, you'd see people's business cards and some would say attorney at law, but a lot of them would say attorney and counselor at law. And I think in the older generations, there was a much heavier emphasis on, and one we should be doing every day, on actually counseling, advising our clients, getting them in the best position they can be. That is not just being, well, you hired me to help you get disability. Let me walk you through the process. Hey, thanks so much for coming in. Like, our clients have real issues and they need often to be counseled, which transitions to the thing I want to spend some time talking about, which is work. Lots of times clients come to us and we hear questions at all different parts of the process, just like you do. They're working and they're trying to figure out if they're going to apply. They're applying and they're trying to work while they're trying to get disability benefits or they get on benefits. And then they come back in and say, I need to go to work. So I want to, if we can, I really want to hit all three of those sort of components. And if we don't get to all of them, we don't get to all of them. But let's try, because I think this is one of the main issues our clients have is how does the disability process interact with the reality that sometimes I want to work or I need to work, but I can't. So let's start pre-disability application. Someone has working, they're really struggling, or something happens to them, and they're making that decision about whether they should come out of work and apply or sort of stick it out. How do you handle that with your clients?
Well, first and foremost, that is definitely their decision, right? It's like, at the end of the day, bills don't pay themselves. So that is the number one concern for people. I got to keep a roof over my head. I have kids to feed. These things they have to really consider. And a lot of times, some of us, some people may have some savings or retirement they can 401 they can pull out to maybe help bridge that gap. But most of our clients are not in that category. So you hear, I hear a lot of my clients, they have support systems. People will let them live with them or, kind of support them while they're going through the system. So before you make that decision to stop working, first of all, I tell clients, if you can work as long as you can. Talk to your employer. Are they able to work with you, give you some rest here or there? Because it's important. And I've realized, people need to survive. So I think it's a very personal decision. I will counsel them, either which way, it's up to you, but we're here for you. We'll try to provide you with resources if we can, any government assistance you can rely on. So it's very personal, but I do understand, the reality is you have to survive. So, but if you just can't work, then you got to make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, a lot of times when we get that question, we ask them some real direct questions. Like we were looking at time numbers. I think yesterday, the hearings we did yesterday in our office had applied 14, 15, and 18 months ago. There's cases are still probably 2 to 3 months from a decision and maybe another 2 to 3 months from payment. So let's just say 2 years. In the past, it's been slower and faster, but 2 years a lot of times is a really good estimate. So I look at them dead in the eye and say, how are you going to pay your bills for 2 years? Sometimes they don't have an option, but you're looking at them. You want them to understand this reality that's coming. Do you have the means to be able to survive for that? Sometimes people don't have a choice and it's just the reality is there, but we want them to appreciate what's coming when they're making that decision. Second question I ask a lot of times is, are you going to lose your insurance? Because if you're going to get on disability, we need them to have their insurance so they can get the medical treatment they need. And a lot of times they lose that. And so a lot of times we try to walk them through not the emotional component of it, but we want to walk them through the practical component of it, finances and insurance, and then help them make the best decision that they can. So, I think you're spot on. It has to be their decision, but in my office, we want them to make an informed decision. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I think I told you this. One of the reasons we do the podcast is I think a lot of information on the internet is bad. So if you go through some marketing clearinghouse to try to get a lead, they're not even asking you those type questions. Are you over 55? Do you have an impairment? Do you have a letter of support? Do you have a cane? I mean, that's what a sort of a Facebook ad for disability looks like. And I mean, Kylie, that's not the question you should be asking candidly to start. You should be looking at that reality. So I think that's great. That's what you guys do. So let's go to the process though, because one, I don't know about you. Do you ever read files and you find out your client was working the whole time right before you're preparing for the hearing?
I didn't even know. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. You're just like, oh, man, let's have a conversation. Right. And it's unfortunate, but I feel like I've definitely had people, and I guess it's just a misunderstanding. They feel like they can go through the process and work while they're waiting, but Social Security just doesn't work that way. So they're like, look at these earnings reports. You're capable of achieving SGA or substantial gainful activity. We need to withdraw this claim. And it's unfortunate because you're between a rock and a hard place, because their response is, well, how was I going to pay my bills? I know, I get it. Yeah, but yes, the damn the detrimental of gosh, now I'm getting all worded.
The detrimental impact.
Yes, it's like,
Yeah.
the boom that comes down the hammer when you look at that earnings report, and you're just like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
what in the world? So, and oftentimes it's the clients who have been ducking and dodging you and not answering your calls to even get those questions
Yeah,
answered.
that's true. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you a couple of things I think are interesting, and then we're going to play a little rap. Sometimes I like play rapid fire, where I just throw some topics out and we talk about it. And I think that's a good way to sort of hit some of these issues and not miss the issues, but really flesh them out. We put a policy in our office like 3 years ago. Like every time you speak, anyone who speaks to any client in our office is required on every conversation to ask them if they're working. And we're very clear though from day one. Look, you need to tell me that you're working, because if you are working, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't get disability benefits, but it changes the whole tenor of what we're arguing and what we need to be doing in terms of maybe talking to your employer, who we don't talk to if we don't know you have one. Looking at SGA and helping them understand how much you can make and can't make before you get that step one denial you were talking about there at the beginning. How do we avoid that step one denial? So I think one of the takeaways I think our clients need to understand is your attorney needs to know if you are working. You would be surprised, because we don't just reject cases because clients are working. Now, granted, you can work yourself out of disability, but we're going to work with you every chance we can. So let's talk about some of these issues that are directly related to working while you're applying. Let's talk a little bit about unsuccessful work attempts. So how does an unsuccessful work attempt, how does that play out for someone who's trying to get benefits and they're trying to work?
So an unsuccessful work attempt is when a client has, or a person has, worked for 6 months or less, and they have had to stop their job due to an impairment. The conditions, the hours were decreased, anything like that. So oftentimes, and a client will actually, some clients will come to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about working this job, and should I get a job? I have some bills to pay. And so I have a very candid conversation with my clients. I said, we can look at work two ways. One, you could find a job. The employer is accommodating to you. You feel like it's something you can work with your limitations. It works out. Just keep us updated with the progress. Because, at the end of the day, you'll make more working than you will on Social Security all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. So I
Yeah, for
also
sure.
tell them that it could work in your favor, where you could find this job and you know what? It didn't work out. You called out too many times. You were late all the time. Your pain you worked one day, but you were bed bound for 3 days because you were in so much pain. That actually works in favor for you. So I say, let's look at this in two ways. One, you can find a job where an employer is accommodated. Good. I want to see that. But if it doesn't work out, we're going to use that in our case, right? We're going to say, Your Honor, this person tried to work. They went out there, adjusted to a different type of job, and it didn't work out. And let's do an unsuccessful work attempt for this person. That's kind of
Yeah, I
how I
mean,
explain.
yeah, and I think that's one thing people need to understand is I don't think I've ever told anybody not to try to work, but you got to let me know at like month 4 or 5 how it's going, so we can say, hey, let's don't mess this up when it's really I don't know. I don't know, dumpster fire is my new favorite word. Like sometimes that's what the work attempt really is like. So, but let's talk about another phrase that you dropped in there that has a technical meaning, which is accommodated work. And one of the things I think a lot of happens with a lot of times is our clients, they are allowed to continue to work or they do find a job, but it's with what I would call the sympathetic employer, the employer who's saying, hey, you're valuable, you're reliable, you show up, you can do some things for us, but and I'm okay with you not doing the full sort of the full job description that's with this job. And so, hey, that can really work in your favor because that's not really competitive employment. But in my opinion, a lot of times then, let's see, get your thoughts on this. You need to be working with the employer, getting an affidavit that's going to really delineate what they did and really drawing out what they don't do.
Right. I had a very good example, a very good case in out of Georgia, where my client used to be like a foreman at a manufacturing company, and he was doing heavy type work. Ended up having a couple strokes, and so they kept him on the payroll, significantly so. And we had not only did his employer work with me writing an affidavit. We got word from the doctor, hey, this person is restricted, such a light duty. I wrote to the judge and I said, hey, this is by definition accommodated work, right? He is not at the level he used to be, and we were approved. And so, if you are making, and again, I think it draws back to communicating with us as your attorney to let us know what's going on. So we do check in and we say, hey, are you working? Give us your details. What's going on? Keep us updated. Let's work with your employer. Do they know you're working? Do they know you're applying? Are they accommodating to you? Let's talk to them. I will call an employer and say, hey, this is what we need. Can you provide us this information? And most are pretty accommodated and will write us a little statement or something and sign it and say, hey, yeah, this is what they do and this is what they don't do. So I think it's all about being open and honest with us about your work activities, because the reality is we know the struggles, right? You have to survive out here. So just let us, like you said before, it does not end your claim for Social Security disability. We just got to be strategic about it, right? And that's what we're here for. That's why we are here to help you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I think it really behooves a client to have an attorney helping them, because these types of things can come up and they really don't probably have any idea how to navigate this on their own. It's so interesting. I had a client once a long time ago with Judge Williams, who's retired, no longer there in Greensboro. And my client literally was like making $30,000 a year, and he worked in this plant, and he was the only person in the plant who knew how to fix a machine. So he was basically a machine fixer, mechanic. And they brought him in. He was the only person they could pay to fix it. It cost more to hire people outside the company to come fix this machine when it periodically broke down. And I want to say, like, we got his employer to come in and say, how much does he really work? And he's like, hey, he's probably working 2 hours, 3 hours a month. And I'm like, why in the world would you pay him $3,000? He's like, because if that machine shuts down, it costs us tens of thousands of dollars to be able to not work, not to mention we still have to pay $3 or $4 grand to bring somebody in to fix it. And it was just amazing that we ended up winning his case. He was over SGA, which you can do. I think one of the few times I've done that, but just a real good example of you just don't know if you don't know. And yeah. And so the other thing that we deal with a lot is we have the clients who they get on disability, and usually we don't get the call till it's too late, but they want to go back to work. So can you talk briefly about, so once you get on disability and you want to return to work, I know this is a big passion for you. You're a big, a lot of, it's so funny. I have lawyers on it. They have all kinds of different opinions about all kinds of different issues. We did a podcast not long ago. I can't remember who it was. And they're like, golly, don't ever let my clients work. Don't go back to work. Don't tell them about work. And that is not Ari's strategy here. So tell us
about that. Just do a sidebar, like, most clients will literally tell you, I would much rather be working. I wish I could be working. I had a client in California said, he's like, ma'am, I wish I could be out there. I would work for free if I could get out of my house and do something. They feel productive. They're giving back to the community. I won't go on a tangent, but that misconception of people like disabled people are lazy, and no, they're not. They want to be out there working just like you and I. So anyway, I will draw back from that little tangent of mine, but very passionate because people want to be useful, right? And so I want to help you in the best way I can. But to your question, when they are on benefits and they want to decide to work, so we will walk through. Typically they'll call you too late when overpayment, something has happened, but we do want to counsel you on, you can go back to work. It's called a temporary work period. Within those first, and Jay, you may want to correct me. I've been studying for that specialist now, so I think I know it. But during that 60-month period, you can go back to work, and not, if you do 9 months of SGA work, then it will trigger that your benefits will cease.
Right.
And then there's some okay, you may have to help me on this one. So after the TWP and you've successfully done that, you can still come back on disability if you're no longer able to engage in SGA. So there are a lot of rules, which again, this is why having an attorney will help you to navigate going back to work, and is this the best decision for you?
Yeah, I mean, you have sort of a number of issues. There's some programs. You have your trial work period when they look at work for services, which is a little bit misleading because there's a number called work for services, which is a little bit lower than SGA. You're right. If you had 9 months of SGA, the next month you lose your benefit. SGA is substantial gainful activity. That's the minimum amount you can make and still be on disability. But in your return to work, they actually have a number called work for services. And so if you're overworked for services for 9 months and then you hit SGA, you lose your benefits. But the thing to understand is there is the ability to try to work without necessarily losing your benefits. And then if you go back to work and you're successful in returning to work, but then you are unable to maintain the work because of your impairments, you're able to have a reentitlement period where you're able to actually come back onto disability without having to go through the process again. That's another whole episode probably where we would have to go through to really flesh it out. But I think, one of the big takeaways, I think, and like, again, we're out of time. I don't know. We don't ever get to all the stuff we want to talk about. But I think one of the big takeaways, though, is communication with your lawyer is key. And in no set of facts or no set of issues is that more important than work, because you are going to have to really understand the rules to figure out what you can and can't do. And at the end of the day, I think you're right. One of the things that people who don't understand our clients misunderstand is that our clients want to work because there's a sense of value that comes with work, and many of them lose that. And I personally, for reasons I don't want to get into, we shouldn't be tying our value to work, but a lot of people do. Most people do. At some level, we all do. And you lose that. And so people want to return to work. And so understanding the work rules is necessary for you to be able to advise people going through this process. But we are out of time. But I tell you this, I want you to tell us, how can we get in touch with the Clausen Law Firm? Someone wants to hire you guys. I know your office is in Durham. You handle cases nationwide. How can they call you? Where can they go to check you guys out? What information can we give our audience so they can find you and catch some of that enthusiasm at that low point in their life?
So we are at the clausendisability.com. As you said, we are nationwide, so we will represent you locally, not locally. I've been everywhere across the United States to be present with our clients. Our number is 855-644-3131. We're on Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias. Just find us, the Clausen Disability. So, but yeah, I would love to represent you. Thank you.
Yeah. Ari, thank you so much. We will drop all your information in the description. Maybe the editors or Carrie. Shout out to my producer, Carrie, did a great job today. We'll get Carrie to drop that in the video there when they produce it. And so folks can find you. And with that, that's a wrap. That's another episode of Disability Expert Podcast. Subscribe, leave comments, engage with us. Tune in next time as we talk to another disability expert about what we can do to help win your case. Thanks, God.